Are you having some trouble beating the simulated universe because you don't know what teams to run and what curios and blessings to get? Perfect. Not because I want you to struggle so I can make a YouTube video on it, by the way, but because I want to help you. Now before we begin, there are some bosses that are in the story that are in the simulated universe, so if you haven't done the story yet and you don't want to be spoiled, this is your warning. I think it's worth mentioning that there's going to be a lot more solutions to win than what I tell you, so don't be afraid to have fun, change things based on who you have on your account. Also, I firmly believe that you can win with any path resonance when fully maxed out, but some path resonances are better for some worlds than others when you're lower level than your enemy, and depending on what characters you have. So first things first, don't worry about it if you lose. In the end, you're still farming points for your ability tree, and that'll make you a lot stronger in the simulated universe. The simulated universe is 10 times easier to beat after you unlock your ability tree. For example, you can unlock a reviver which revives dead party members, and a reset blessing which I personally use all the time to reroll my blessings to get the right path blessing. Gets rid of a bit of the RNG that comes from selecting your blessings, which makes it easier to win. So for the curios that I've found on my account, the only curios I would recommend most of the time are these ones. Warping Compound Eye, which levels up all the blessings that appear by 1. Fortune Glue, which gives you a chance to get a random free star blessing, is really nice. The Doctor's Robe tends to come in clutch a lot. It gives you path energy and also path damage. Society Ticket gives you more econ for cosmic fragments, and Faith Bond reduces how much cosmic fragments you need. Robe of Beauty can be strong, but I don't usually get it. Sealing Wax you only get if it matches your path. Always take a broken code, all of them are great. They're amazing and they're stronger than any other codes, and I don't think I've ever had a time where I haven't been able to get the buff of the codes. Shattered Star Bait, a starter cure that makes you go fast. Space-Time Prism, aka the cheese, increases all allies' Eidolon resilience by 1. It's great for 5 stars with strong Eidolons. The closer we get to the end of the game, the more people who are going to have 4 stars with max Eidolons, so it'll be worse for them. I think the easiest paths to beat World Free with is the Hunt and the Preservation. I went with Preservation because I wanted to use March 7th and not use a healer, but I do recommend bringing a healer, namely Natasha or whoever your first 5-star is. If it was Bailu, Geopard's good here, Clara. Anyone who has the weaknesses of the boss is really good. If you're going the path of Preservation like I did, make sure to bring Geopard or March 7th, whoever you have that has a shield, and it'll be such an easy time. The best part about using the path of Preservation is that you don't need a DPS if you don't have one. This path is all about survivability by making your shield stronger and providing damage through resonance that scales off of the shield. For Blessings of Preservation, I like this one that does quake damage to enemies based on the shield that is on the character that is being attacked, as well as this one and this one, which affects how much damage the blessing does. Also, you don't have to stick with the same team when you get to the boss. You can always change your team as you go along. I think Sushang's great for this boss, but if you don't have Sushang, Physical MC is really good too. Sushang's just a lot better in my opinion. Definitely bring Serval, whatever 5-star you got will always be helpful. The path of Preservation will take a long time to beat the boss because you're not really relying on your character strength to beat it, you're just relying on the path resonance damage. This is kind of a situation where the path of the Hunt would be a faster way to beat it, but if you can't survive Geopard or his minions' attacks, then path of Preservation will keep you alive and you won't even feel like you're getting hurt. Oh yeah, one nice thing about Geopard is he may have freeze resist, but you can still freeze him. So even if you use the Path of Remembrance, if you wanted to, you could definitely use that to cheese the boss. Now the second phase and the third phase of Geopard's boss fight is so much harder than the first phase. To showcase his amazing powers of being a tank, Geopard will shield all of his allies on the field, and then even if you're close to breaking them or killing them, you probably can't kill them until that shield is broken. So after Geopard uses that shield, it's basically a battle of whether or not you can break his shield fast enough or live long enough through it until you break it. It doesn't really matter who you hit when you're trying to break the shield, all that matters is that you break the shield. Also, single target characters don't really do great against the shield, but I find that AoE characters do really good against the shield. Don't forget that when your path resonance is full, that you can just pop it and it'll help you break it a lot faster. The final phase is stupid, alright? He gets 2 elites on his team that have counters, and so it can be really hard to deal with it. But they are freezable, and if you have March 7th, whatever they target, you can just shield that character, and you'll be perfectly fine. If you try to beat it with no healer like I did, then you gotta be a little bit more careful, because these guys do hit like trucks. But if you have a healer like Natasha or Bailu, you're probably Bing chillin'. Basically, this strat is just, if you can't beat him, join him. If he wants to have a giant shield and protect all his allies, then we'll have a giant shield and protect all our allies. Also, I'm sure you've noticed by now, but I don't really do any damage to him. And that's the best part about running preservation, is just, even without having the necessary damage, you can still win just thanks to the path resonance.
In the name of preservation!
Though you can't take forever, because there is this mechanic in the game where if you take a long time, eventually the boss will go into like a rage state and they'll do a lot more damage slowly over time. Now thankfully, once you've killed his last 2 minions, the round's basically over and you've basically won. All you have to do is finish off Geopard, and that's not hard at all, because the real challenge is just getting rid of the guys that he summons. Also, after you beat your card, I would highly recommend reaching level 50 before you challenge World 4, 5, and 6. Because in Worlds 4, 5, and 6, the enemies are going to be even higher level than you, and it's going to be hard to do damage to enemies that are higher level than you by an absurd amount. So World 4 is 100% easier than World 3 and 5, and that's because we can use the Path of the Hunt. For fighting Sarvog, I think you should bring Pyro MC, because their shield comes in clutch against some of the enemies that are on the floor. And then also bring Danhong, Asta, and Serval, or Natasha. For my own clear of the world, I brought Yanqing just because I wanted to use my 5-star again. But Danhong is definitely probably better for the fight since he has the weakness of the boss. There are a lot of good blessings for Path of the Hunt. Sadly, I wasn't able to get this during my run, but this one is really good. The one that changes your energy limit from 100 to 200 points is really strong. All the critical boost ones are good, and if you combine it with Light Hunting Celestial Arrow, it just becomes insane. Also, the Path of the Hunt has some turn manipulation blessings, so feel free to pick those up too. So on phase 1, 2, and 3, Sarvog summons minions, and the Path of the Hunt makes it super easy to just obliterate all of them. You're going to want to save your Path Resonance for when he summons his minions, and right as he summons them, you let your Path Resonance down and obliterate all of them. To be honest, this is a fight until the 3rd phase where you can basically auto the whole thing, and you'll do perfectly fine.
Calculating result. Initiating.
Strike with heart. Bladed flight.
Adjusting calculation. Surge initiated.
Also reminder, whenever he summons the little minions, just use your Path of Resonance and you'll have a way easier time. Because those little minions with their little shield is so annoying to deal with without the resonance. When you get to phase 2, he summons 2 bigger robots, and now that can be a little scary at first, but this is also another reason why we brought Pyro MC to take the aggro from them off of our other characters, and also to shield our characters from the incoming damage. It's also worth noting that when it comes to countering and shields, you can't always trust auto to do it correctly, so be careful on when you leave auto on.
You can fight it.
For the second phase, once you clear the first phase of robots, they don't respawn, so you don't have to worry about them again.
Okay. Lance forward. Swords descend.
Oh yeah, for the third phase, I recommend turning off auto battle because you don't want to mess up during this phase. The third phase of Sarvog is the most terrifying phase. He has this giant hand that can grab your characters and imprison them, and unless you break it, then you can't get your characters back. And it'll slowly delete their health bar until they die.
Pretty good crowd today.
While a character's imprisoned, you also can't heal them. So if you want to heal them, you're going to have to break them free.
Naughty child.
Also, if you're wondering why Sarvog has an ice weakness sometimes,
Bladed flight.
it's because I have a buff in the simulated universe that makes it so that enemies gain ice weakness if I hit them enough.
Nice teamwork.
So something a little painful about the third phase is he does summon more than one hand to attack you, so he can imprison more than one person, and it'll slowly just keep stacking up, so you do want to get rid of a few of those hands while also getting rid of his health bar so that you can actually win. If he does take your healer, the priority changes to going for his hand because you don't want to die, and your healer is going to be the one that keeps you alive. So make sure to get rid of the hand and free your healer so that if anything unpredictable happens and he does a lot more damage than you think, that you have someone that can keep you up and alive. Also, if you leave his hands alone for too long, they will explode and kill your characters, so make sure to watch out for that. It's not something you really want to see happen, and it can be a killer to your run if you're not careful. So just make sure you can finish off the fight before that happens.
You can fight it or rock with it. A one-time enemy.
World 5 is where we unlock a new path called Abundance, but to unlock it, you have to first enter World 5. So they basically want you to lose first, then unlock the new path. So after you go into World 5 for the first time, whether you decide to beat it or just go in, exit, and restart so that you can get the new path called Abundance. The reason why we're going Path of Abundance this time for World 5 is because Kafka uses a lot of debuffs, and in the Path of Abundance you're going to want to grab this Resonance Blessing, which will remove all the character debuffs from your party. Now during my run I got extremely lucky and ended up getting this buff from Herta's friend that gave me all the blessings of preservation, so it's not likely you're going to end up getting this buff because it's super rare, but I will still explain the boss mechanics anyway. So besides having a banger song to start off the fight, there is two enemies that are on the field with Kafka, and once you kill them, they don't respawn, thankfully. It's only her after you kill them, so be sure to kill them as fast as possible.
That hurt. Ready? How does that feel? You're not going anywhere.
When a character is dominated, they will attack your own party, so it is a good idea to cleanse the thing off of them. If you have Natasha and one of her talents upgraded, you can cleanse it off of them. March 7th also has a cleanse, so you could use her to cleanse off the debuff from Kafka. And if you got that Path Resonance buff I mentioned, you can also use that to cleanse it. But because I have the Path of Preservation, and I didn't seem to be taking any damage, I just didn't use it. Because I just wanted to see how tanky I was. Now once you reach phase 2, she'll start to charm multiple people. She'll put this little heart symbol over your characters, and that means you've been charmed. Usually what I would do whenever I got charmed, like when I didn't have the Path of Preservation buff when I'm farming this world, is that I will use Natasha's E to cleanse off one of the characters so that at least only one character gets charmed instead of two. If you want to know when she's going to unleash her ult, or well, charm your characters that have the heart symbol on them, it's when you see that little spider. When that thing hits the top of the timeline, it'll charm everyone, and so they'll all be dominated. But reminder that it only works if they have the heart symbol on them. If they don't have the heart symbol on them, then they're going to be perfectly fine when it triggers. Also, it is during this phase that Kafka, every time she attacks, you can see like this little number at the top. Right now it's at 7 underneath her name. Every time she attacks, her damage is going up. So if you take too long for this fight, her damage will eventually scale to the point where she'll kill you. And since Kafka relies on DOTs, anytime one of her DOTs triggers, it also goes up, because that counts as an attack. So phase 3 is super scary because that is when she starts to charm the whole team with hearts. So if you don't have a cleanse, it becomes even more scary, and plus her damage is always ramping up slowly. So it can be very, very hard to beat this.
Zoning out. I can do that sting.
I think it's about time I reveal a little trick. So say you get close to beating her, and then you're about to lose. What you can do is just Alt F4. If you have one party member alive, just Alt F4, and then reopen the game, and you'll start right, they'll put you right before you fought the boss. So that way you can keep your buffs and you don't have to go through the whole floor again.
Swords descend.
And at least for now, it works on every floor of the simulated universe.
Lance forward.
And it's especially handy for World 6.
Who will it be? Nap time. Rise, Venus! Dodge this! Strike with heart!
For World 6, you have to fight Cocolia and Bronya. And that can be a challenge. Which is why I recommend going the Path of Destruction. Off the top of my head, the characters that come to mind for characters you should bring is Himiko, Hook, Asta, Serval, Seely, MC Pyro, Natasha, or Bailu. Seely and the next limited 5-star are also good. And then my personal favorite, who's finally good for the floor, Chinchwei, is finally allowed to come onto the field. Because there's a lot of enemies on World 6 that are weak to Quantum. So some of the blessings I think you should look out for is this one, which trades your health in for shield that lasts for 2 turns every time you use your resonance path. I like to combine it with the ones that have fighting spirit on it because then you'll just never die. There's also a noteworthy 1-star buff that when you would normally die, it'll res your character and save them. So similar to some of the earlier worlds, the bosses are going to be higher level than you by a lot. Like she's 15 levels higher than me because all my characters are level 50 because I didn't reach AR 40 yet. So what we're going to do is use the Path of Resonance to destroy all the spears she summons. And if we get low, it doesn't matter because our Path of Resonance, the lower health we are, the stronger it gets. There's not really much to say about the first half because Cocolia doesn't really do much besides freeze some of your characters. It's probably a good idea to have a little bit of effect resist on your characters if you don't want to get frozen often. But besides that, all she does is summon just one spear every now and then. But the fight really starts on her second phase. Just a reminder, you do want to have decently leveled relics for this world because it isn't that easy as it may look. But anyways, Bronya joins on the second phase, and that's when you're gonna have to fight 2 bosses at once. Bronya does have the ability to raise Cocolia's actions all the way to 100% to be at the top of the list. So you gotta be really careful when it happens because you might be thinking, oh, I'm fine, and then all of a sudden she'll raise the action bar, and you'll be like, oh gosh, no, and then your whole team's dying slowly. So you gotta be careful. Also, you don't have to use the Quantum Girl for this. You could just bring Serval because Serval is more consistent, and you've probably built Serval by this point. But I just like using her, so that's why I brought her. When you get frozen, your turn gets delayed. And that can make for a deadly combo when Bronya raises Cocolia's actions to the front of the turn order. So it's a pretty good idea to get rid of Bronya as fast as you can, so you don't have to deal with it.
I'm okay.
This path and the Path of Abundance is basically a mixture of the Path of the Zombie. It comes in clutch when you're low HP, and it just keeps you from dying to some things that would normally kill you. Main character Pyro comes in clutch for this fight because 1, you need a tank, and 2, just having the 2 Pyro characters who can break everyone's weaknesses is really good for this fight.
My turn.
There is an achievement for leaving Bronya alive.
That'll take more
If you
than
want to
medicine.
go for it. But I would probably recommend on your first time trying to clear it that you kill Bronya.
Think nothing of it.
If you leave Bronya alive during phase 2, she'll end up being in phase 3, so it's a good idea to just get rid of her before you go to phase 3. Because you don't want to have to deal with a spamming ult Cocolia and Bronya. Also, I think it's a great idea to always save a skill point for Asta so she can get her ult back faster and make your turns go faster, but also so that she can break the shields and make your life a lot easier. So the good thing about phase 3 is that it's actually easier to beat than phase 2. Cocolia no longer has Bronya to raise her actions up in the turn order. The only thing that's a little annoying is that she has this AoE ice damage that goes off every now and again. And she actually just keeps spamming this like ult animation for her abilities. So all you have to do is just keep breaking her over and over again. And when I mean she spams this move, I mean she spams this move every single time she gets up. So it's really, really nice if you have Asta who's great at shield breaking, because it just makes it so easy. Also, I do think it is worth mentioning that the longer the fight goes, the stronger she gets. So you do have to be careful, because if you're not careful, she will eventually get to the point where she can one-shot your whole party.
Just a little something. Think nothing of it.
And remember how I told you about that one level 1 destruction buff that comes in clutch? Well, it came in clutch here. And thanks to it, my healer who would have died lived, and I was able to beat World 6.
Everything is ordained. Oh, stars, give these trailblazers your blessing. Look at the draw. Please. And victory! That'll take more than medicine.
Lance ablaze! Lance forward!
Naughty child.
The world that they promised.
So that is all the worlds 3 through 6 that most people have had trouble with. If you are having trouble, remember to upgrade your ability tree, level up your characters and relics. I personally just wanted to beat it before I reached AR40, but there is no rush whatsoever. If you challenge it later on, you'll definitely have an easier time with it, and if you're the correct level, it'll also be a lot easier too. Also, just in case someone out there is curious, if you complete your weekly points amount needed for Simulated Universe, you can still get ability points for your ability tree. And a quick tip I forgot about in combat is you want to put your tank characters on the left or the right side of your party so that only they get attacked, because some enemies have AoE attacks, and if your tank is in the middle, it'll hit more people. In Herder's shop, you're going to be able to buy light cones. I think the hunt one is the best one you can buy, and then after you buy the hunt light cone, you should get the superimposer thing so that you can upgrade the light cone.